building those really nicely looking input interfaces. If you see, you're about to have a meeting on Outlook, and on the bottom right-hand side, there is a little pop-up that says, your meeting is about to start. That's a form of an adaptive card. Quite a few of those cards, like Snooze, you see calendar reminder, that's an adaptive card. A lot of the stuff you see on Teams or on Azure DevOps or in Outlook, if you've ever seen an approval flow, which I'm sure most of you have seen, that's also a form of an adaptive card. So that's an underlying technology. We work with it a lot in order to build those nice interfaces for Teams and for web components. And yeah, if you're not familiar with it, it's totally free and it's really, really cool. You can essentially use this sort of visual designer to build your card, infuse it with some data, and then do cool stuff with it. So anyway, that's all about this. I've explained a little bit about dynamics. Let me just then essentially bring you to the core of this presentation, which is our website. And on this website, we've got Make It Happen button. And this Make It Happen button opens this form. And you will notice a couple of things. First of all, it's a modal experience. So it's so, mobile friendly and all that. And we've made a conscious decision rather than trying to embed something within the portal. It's so much, in our experience, so much better to bring a modal experience, which still keeps the website behind the scenes, but it focuses you on that element here. And here we can go through the journey. Now, the one thing before we go through the journey, I'll explain how it works, is you see behind the scenes, this is just an adaptive card that has a bunch of what we call containers, or what they call containers. And containers are just like folders for things. So essentially, instead of showing you this long form that would be very boring and sort of difficult for you to fill out, you're about to do something, you don't know how much you've got left, and if you see, a form with like 10, 15 questions, you're probably just going to give up. Here you just see one. So I'm just going to put my email address. I think I've mentioned before that regex validation is that, we've got put regex on most of our fields, so that was horrendous, but never mind. We all love regex. And then you see the next question, and you see this corresponds to this card. The next container has this question, the next container has this question. So it's sort of, if you've ever used the protocol type form, it's quite similar approach where you sort of put only one question at a time and you put an animation in between. So we answer some questions about the company, nothing really particularly exciting here. And then we come to this question, which is about, which industry are you in? And I think you guys mentioned most of you are sort of working in government or government related features. So let's just select government. And then lastly, you just tell us, we could be quite clever and try to ask you where you are in and then try to be honest, it's just for demonstration, just pick your currency, whatever. Let's pick dollars. You'll notice that now the screen is sort of loading for a few seconds. And the reason why that's happening, let me explain before we go any further, is the core advantage of this approach to building forms over something like Microsoft Forms, right? Or any other form builder, because from what you've seen so far, it's not really that much different. Now, this is what makes it different. So what we've done is in the middle of the form, we've instigated a call to our backend CRM system in order to get some data out and actually go, okay, this guy said he's in government, so let's just make sure that these questions are fit for purpose. And I know that there are certain form packages and products that allow you to build this sort of logic. It's not uncommon, but there aren't any, as far as I'm concerned, that allow you to do it programmatically without, or not programmatically, I mean, essentially it's a backend process rather than being something that's embedded within a form. This can be totally dynamically defined. It will make more sense in a second, but in some other examples. But essentially, the whole point I'm trying to make is in the middle of a question or between one container and the next, we can instigate a Power Automate call that goes and does something and brings those details back in a very much unstructured fashion. So we're not passing parameters, we're essentially passing objects, which mean that I can, define unlimited amount of these things and they can have additional logic behind the scenes. And none of that has to be coded in some form building software. It's just your standard flows. Does that make sense? I hope it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Keep going. I'm loving it.
Cool. All right. So let's go. So